guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So, man, the Jets have fired Robert Saleh. Jeff Ulbrich has taken over as interim head coach, and it is still so early into the season. The Jets are 2-3, one game beneath 500. If they go out and they beat the Bills this Sunday, they're in first place. They are in sole possession of first place within the AFC East. There's a lot of football left to be played. Is the season over? No, absolutely not. But in this one, I wanted to go over some of the coaching candidates, some of the guys that I've personally had my eye on, whether it's focused on this season or going back to last season, just guys that I feel like makes sense for the Jets, and also realistic targets as well. And I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments section. Who are some of the coaches that you want? Do you have a number one guy in mind that you are just hell-bent on the Jets targeting? I think it's going to be a really fun conversation really throughout the course of the season. So, and also, quick disclaimer, I apologize about the audio and the visual. I wish I was back home. I had all my stuff, right, my camera and everything, but I had to evacuate for the hurricane. I just didn't have time to grab all my stuff. Because the storm is quickly approaching. It's going to hit the west coast of Florida. So yeah, as much as I want to, hook up the better mic and everything, I just don't have access to it right now, unfortunately. So I appreciate you guys bearing with me, but let's jump into it. All right. The first coach that we need to talk about is the here and now, Jeff Ulbrich. What happens if Jeff Ulbrich wins 9 games? Ulbrich kind of reminds me of when Dan Campbell took over in Miami, albeit it was a much smaller sample size, but Campbell had the Miami Dolphins rolling back in the day. And this was years and years ago, but it was just, okay, he's a good offensive mind. Players bought in, players respected him. A great leader, somebody who was vocal not only just in practice and doing media sessions and whatnot, but vocal on game days. It really felt as though he had the players' backs. I remember, years and years ago, when I was living actually in South Florida, I was relieved when the Dolphins moved on and they didn't hire him as full-time head coach. Jeff Ulbrich is somebody who obviously knows the team. He has a prime opportunity to not only just impress the organization, but impress the players, impress the fans as well. He's been calling the defense, so I really don't feel as though the defense is going to take a step backwards in any way, shape, or form. Really, the question comes down to offense. How much can he offer on that side of the football? Can he provide any changes? Even if he has zero idea on how to fix the offense, is he maybe quick to pull the trigger in certain areas? No, Nathaniel Hackett, we're not doing that. We're not calling that. Don't like that idea. We're switching it up. Does he have the power to potentially demote Nathaniel Hackett, right? Say the Jets go on a losing streak or the offense is just anemic, continues to look like how it's been. Does he just strip play calling duties? No, they're going to Todd Downing. No, they're going to someone else. We'll see. We'll see what happens on that front. But I do expect players on all three sides of the ball, offense, defense, special teams, to play fast, to play physical, to really just I don't even know if this is a word, out effort the opponent, right? 110 miles an hour. I want every player on this football team playing like Quincy Williams does. Dude never takes a break. The dude never packs it in, mails it in, takes a play off. No, it's do or die every play. And I love that. I love that mentality. So that's what I'm expecting from this Jets not from this Jets defense, from this Jets team as we move forward throughout the course of this season. You got to imagine that the Jets the higher ups have confidence in Ulbrich to get the job done, because one of the biggest reports coming out of this whole thing, right, the Saleh firing, was they didn't believe that Saleh had the ability to turn things around, right, to right the ship. Obviously, if Ulbrich was named interim head coach within 5 minutes of the firing, they feel as though Ulbrich is the man for the job, at least for this season. So that's option number one. What happens, again, if the Jets make the playoffs, if we go on a playoff run? Jeff Ulbrich's the guy. Players bought in, and everybody is rolling, right? Do you really want to move on from a guy like that if the Jets get 11 wins, 11, 12 wins, and we get a playoff win? I don't know. It's up for debate. Only time will tell, but we have to include Jeff Ulbrich in this list first and foremost. Number two, Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel is somebody who checks the boxes for me when I'm looking at the New York Jets. I would say maybe checklist of attributes or traits that I want in my next head coach. I want someone who's tough. I want someone who's no BS. I want someone who's going to have the team prepared. I need accountability within this team. I want a leader. I want leadership. No finger pointing. By the way, I'm not necessarily saying that Saleh, is at the fault for all of these things. But, I want someone who ideally has head coaching experience before, someone who could come in and just right the ship. No, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to get the negativity out. We're going to hold players accountable. There is going to be discipline. We are going to be prepared. There's going to be no more slow starts. Game planning is A+. I want a good game planner, right? And I feel like Mike Vrabel is exactly that. Obviously, this is someone who has won a lot of football games, not only just as a player, but as a coach. He spent so much time with the New England Patriots as a player. He's in the Patriots Hall of Fame. Spent a couple years, I believe it was either 1 or 2 years as the Houston Texans defensive coordinator, gets the job as the Titans head coach and doesn't look back, right? Actually recorded a 54-45 record, and at the time the Titans were just reeling, right? It really felt as though Tennessee was just searching for their guy, and Vrabel came in and brought stability and brought toughness to that team. Really gave them a good identity, right? A sense of belief. Tough physical defense. We're going to value smarts. We're going to value defensive IQ. We're going to value toughness, maybe over the athletic 40-yard dash times, the quickness, the speed. We're just going to outmuscle our opponents. And that was 1,000% clear, not only just on defense, but in the offensive side of the trenches, as well as the running game, right? Think of Derrick Henry, and we just got to get a game manager in there at quarterback and just hold down the fort, not screw it up. Vrabel has playoff experience. Vrabel has playoff wins. I love those two things about him. He has taken a year off, so I would assume he comes in with fresh ideas. He has also won a Super Bowl as a player. I think he would be an awesome A+ hire. I love Mike Vrabel. I've always loved Mike Vrabel. I think that'd be great. Now, of course, with all these coaches, they're not perfect. We do have to talk about the downsides. The downsides with Mike Vrabel, does he solve any issues on the offensive side of the football? Maybe. Probably not. That was the downfall in Tennessee. I mean, hell, Todd Downing was in Tennessee. Keith Carter was in Tennessee. There were offensive issues, especially towards the tail end of Vrabel's, career there. Was there any quarterback development? Was there much saved from Vrabel on the offensive side of the football? The one thing that Vrabel did do a great job of is identifying good offensive minds to run the Titans systems, right? Think of Arthur Smith, who ended up getting the job in Atlanta. Think of Matt LaFleur, right? Ended up getting the job in Green Bay. I wanted the Jets to hire Matt LaFleur all those years ago, right? He was my number one candidate in that entire entire coaching search, but the Jets opted to go in a different direction. So, we're looking at Mike Vrabel as a possible candidate. I would love it. I think a lot of Jets fans would love it because he would really bring a lot of the things that the Jets have lacked in recent years. And this is also trickling into the Adam Gase era too, because there was obviously no leadership and accountability there. Head coaching option number 2. This one might be a little out there, but I still feel like it's worth mentioning. I think this is somebody who, if he has interest in coaching, the Jets should pick up the phone. Pete Carroll, yes, up there in age. Yes, he was let go from Seattle. I don't know if he wants to be a head coach again, but if he does, right, you get the sense that Belichick wants to coach again. He's obviously up there in age. If Pete Carroll wants to come back, I think the Jets would make a lot of sense. This is, a roster with a lot of talent. This is a roster where he can slide in and implement his defense, and the transition is going to be seamless. It's obviously very, very, very similar to what Seattle has been doing under Pete Carroll's tutelage, of course, before Mike Macdonald. The pieces are there. The foundation is already laid. Pete Carroll just needs to come in and provide a good working environment, right? Being able to provide leadership, discipline, accountability. He does a great job of connecting with players. Players want to play for Coach Carroll. Now, what's funny is that Pete Carroll was already the Jets coach years and years and years ago. I think it would be a pretty cool opportunity for him to step in as in kind of the last chapter of his NFL head coaching career and potentially doing something major with the New York Jets, a team that, he had an opportunity with all those years ago. This is someone with a Super Bowl championship. This is someone with multiple playoff wins, right? Playoff success when it matters. This is someone who also does a fantastic job of developing players, developing players. It is huge. The Jets have struggled with that, not so much on the defense side of the football, but on the offensive side of the football. I mean, think back to all the good players that Seattle has had, really, in the last decade. Russell Wilson, right, when he was there, mid-round pick, Doug Baldwin, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, the LOB, right? All these different, I mean, you could just go down the entire list. Pete Carroll's team's always drafted, I want to say for the most part, not perfectly, but pretty good. They did a great job of developing players. They did not win their Super Bowl. They did not have all this playoff success by selling out, by just signing a bunch of players to big contracts and just hoping, okay, stars win us, go out, execute, and win us the whole thing. There was a real sense of draft and develop. Kind of, it's kind of funny because on Seattle side, it's almost the opposite of the Mike Vrabel approach, which is like physical, tough, defensive IQ. For Seattle's kind of build throughout the last decade, and even further than that, to me, it felt as though Seattle really valued the speed, the athleticism, the vertical, the explosiveness, right? That's what they look for in players, the kind of untapped potential, and we're going to develop these guys in the right way and put them in positions to have success. So as far as, Carroll wanting to continue coaching, not sure, but it's worth a call. If I'm Woody Johnson, I'm picking up the phone and I'm giving Pete Carroll a shout before a decision is made. That's what I'm doing, right? Just see what's out there. Don't leave us, stones unturned. This is someone who's a winner. He knows how to win football games, and that's what the Jets need. So next up, it's spot number 4 here. By the way, this is not in any sort of order. This is just a collection of coaches that I feel as though makes sense for the Jets. Number 4 here is offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans, Bobby Slowik. Someone with no head coaching experience, right? We have to take that into consideration. He's a relatively younger guy. He's from the 49ers coaching tree, but man, does he have the Texans. I guess maybe you can argue there was relies too much on screen passes and stuff this season, but macro perspective, Bobby Slowik has done a great job with the Houston Texans offense. I mean, you want to talk about the development of CJ Stroud, the development of skill position players, Nico Collins bursting out onto the scene, Tank Dell. The Texans are in prime position to make a playoff run. You kind of feel like, I don't know, for the foreseeable future, like D'Amico Ryan, Slowik, these guys have the Texans playing great football. They have drafted well. They have signed free agents. They are all in. And it definitely does feel, at least for me, that the offense, they have an identity. They know exactly what they do and what they do well. There's been some offensive line struggles this season. Slowick is not my first choice, but hey, if the Jets end up with Slowick, I'm not going to be disappointed here. Interesting option for sure. And this is also someone who has had a ton of head coaching interest, right? I would say he's probably the second biggest name as far as like the young up and coming coaches are concerned. Like he interviewed for Carolina, Seattle, Tennessee, Washington. And ultimately those teams went in different directions. But Slowick is, he's going to get more interviews and opportunities this offseason. Next up, Ben Johnson, probably like the most talked about guy. Young, innovative, creative, background in developing wide receivers. The offensive line is absolutely fantastic for the Detroit Lions. They're coached really, really well. You never really know where the football is going to go. Is it going to go to the tight end Laporta? Is it going to go to Montgomery or Gibbs? Is it going to be a deep shot to Jameson Williams? When exactly are they going to whip out the play action? Jared Goff is playing good football and has been playing good football. Ben Johnson is one of the biggest reasons why the Lions have been able to sustain this type of success. He has really done so much. Now, I will say this. Of course, no head coaching experience before. How does he handle that seat? Number 2, he wants the ideal spot. You get the sense that Ben Johnson wants power within the organization, which isn't inherently a bad thing, but he's looking for the perfect landing spot. He has had interview after interview, opportunity after opportunity, and he has turned them all down. Turned them all down because he wants the perfect spot. Are the Jets the perfect spot? I don't know, right? Especially with the uncertainty about Aaron Rodgers moving forward, uncertainty about how this season plays out. We don't know exactly how the team is going to look, in 2025, but still an option, still a phone call that needs to be made. So the next head coach here is an interesting one, right? This is someone who knows the AFC East really well. He spent 10 years with the New England Patriots, 3 years as the head coach of the Miami Dolphins. It's Brian Flores, current Minnesota Vikings defensive coordinator. Somebody who's done a absolutely fantastic job with the Vikings. I mean, when he took over, the Vikings had the freaking 31st ranked defense, gets them playing above average football, takes them from 31 to 16. This season, from 16, I want to say to the best defense in football, right? At worst, top 3. And of course, still early. Take it with a grain of salt. Still a lot of football left to be played. How does he handle injuries if that stuff happens, right? But Flores, much like Vrabel, is no BS. We're not going to, no BS. Old school coach. I like the old school coaches. That's just my personal preference. Not saying I'm right. That's just my opinion on, these guys. I like the old school mentality. Is it the best? I'm not sure. That's just my personal preference. But Flores is that type of guy, right? The no BS, kind of more stricter coach. Accountability, discipline, leadership, top 3 attributes, right? When I'm thinking about a potential Brian Flores hiring. All those years working, developing those linebackers, right? You think of all the great linebackers that the Patriots have had throughout the years, the Jamie Collins of the world, the Dante Hightowers of the world. There's been a lot of development there. Brian Flores, there was a big pull from Belichick and whatnot to keep Flores in-house as long as possible before he took the Dolphins job. And even when he was in Miami, first season was pretty rough, but the following 2 seasons, he actually led them to back-to-back winning seasons, and then the Dolphins ended up letting him go for Mike McDaniel. And now Flores, in his time there, was 24-25, which, doesn't sound great. It's like right around the 500 mark. But I'll say this, Saleh's record up to this point was 20-36. So I do think Flores makes sense in a lot of different areas. By the way, he's from New York, he's from Brooklyn, went to high school in Brooklyn. But again, just going down the checklist here, knows the AFC East, no BS type of coach, old school guy. I feel like that's exactly what the Jets need. Has actually won games. He's shown the ability to do that with a not so talented Miami Dolphins roster. Obviously bounced back from the Miami firing, winding up in Minnesota and really doing a great job there in these 2 years so far. Well, a year and a half, year and a quarter, to be fair. I think Brian Flores is worth a look. What's the negative? Does he have quarterback development skills? Are there, issues from the Miami Dolphins kind of era that will linger on with Flores as, he transitions to that next step as, a new head coach of a new team? Or did he maybe learn from his mistakes? I think it's, again, worth the call. Does he fix offensive issues? I'm not sure. But does he have the ability to maybe bring in a better offensive mind? Who knows, right? That's obviously up for debate. But I do like the positives that Flores brings. Next up, Kliff Kingsbury. Now, this is a bit of a wild card one. I don't necessarily know how everybody feels on Kliff Kingsbury, but much like Brian Flores, much like Mike Vrabel, he's been a head coach before. Kliff Kingsbury's overall record, 28-37. He's known for quarterback development, explosive offense, lots of points. Actually played for the Jets years and years ago. But in any case, I mean, you're watching what he's done with Washington. Washington was picking second in the draft, the second worst team record-wise last season. They are in first place in the NFC East, above Dallas, above the Eagles and the Giants, with a rookie quarterback, brand new head coach in Dan Quinn, tons of new players all over the place, Eckler, Ertz, Wagner, Jaden Daniels, all these new guys everywhere, new ownership, new general manager, all these changing parts, all these new faces, and they have hit the ground running. And Kliff Kingsbury has been a massive part of that. I would not be surprised if Washington makes Kliff the highest paid coordinator if Daniels keeps this up and wins Rookie of the Year, because you don't want to, like if you're a Washington fan, like watching Kliff walk out the door, now Jaden has to learn, his second offense in 2 years, and you don't know, what that transition is going to be like. But in any case, Kliff, right, kind of the opposite of Vrabel and Flores, would bring a lot of solutions, would bring a lot of answers to the offensive side of the football. And you kind of feel like whoever's playing quarterback out there they would be in a better position with Kliff calling plays than, I want to say, in the last decade plus, from just a play calling standpoint, from a comfortability standpoint, from a game planning standpoint. But the problem with Kliff is, it's the defensive side. It's the defensive preparation. He's going to have to bring in somebody who just has to handle that side of the football. Now, I do think the Jets have the personnel to where it kind of gives the Jets a leash. Okay, we could bring someone else in, and they're going to be fine because this defense does have talent, which that could arguably be the way to go for a lot of people. Nobody's exactly right, nobody's exactly wrong. This is all just opinion based. So I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. Those, to me, right now, it's early, but the 7 guys that I feel like I'm identifying, the first 7 calls that I would make, again, to quickly run through them. Well, I guess maybe outside of Jeff Ulbrich, it's Mike Vrabel, Bobby Slowik, Ben Johnson, Kliff Kingsbury, Brian Flores, and Pete Carroll. Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, go Jets.